All right, let's gear up for another deep dive. Today we're taking a closer look at the 2024 Kawasaki Ninja 650. And helping us break it all down, we've got a great piece from Biker Motor Writer, published just yesterday, actually, April 4th, 2025, by, let me see, K.R. Andrew.
Yeah, I was just reading this one. It's really interesting.
Yeah, this Ninja 650, it's a bike that really hits a sweet spot for a lot of riders, you know? And what we're hoping to do today is figure out why that is, like what makes this middleweight sport bike stand out, especially I think if you're looking for a bike that can handle both, spirited riding and just everyday life.
Right, exactly. It's got to be fun, but it's got to be practical too. And the article really digs into that, like who Kawasaki had in mind when they
Yeah.
were designing this thing.
Yeah, it does. It talks about how it's aimed at riders who want that sporty feel, that bit of excitement, but without sacrificing comfort, especially if they're going to be using it, for commuting or just getting around town.
Right, like it's not just a weekend warrior kind of bike. It's
Yeah.
it's more than that.
Right. The article even mentions like being a good step up for someone coming from a smaller bike, or maybe, even for experienced riders who are getting back into it after a break and want something, that's fun but not too overwhelming.
Yeah, that makes sense. And when you look at the Ninja 650, it seems like they really nailed that balance.
Mm.
It's powerful enough to give you a thrill, but it's also very approachable.
Yeah, for sure. And it looks like for 2024, Kawasaki didn't completely reinvent the wheel. They kept that smooth, reliable twin-cylinder engine that people love.
Yeah, and it seems like they focused on refining the design.
Yeah.
Giving it a slightly more modern look, maybe a bit sharper. And they've really leaned into some of the tech features too.
Yeah, the article mentions like how they're really aiming for that real-world performance, like
Mhm.
making a bike that's enjoyable and practical for how people actually ride most of the time. So let's get into some of those specifics.
Let's do it.
What's under the hood here?
All right. Well, under the hood, or I guess under the fairing, we're looking at a 649cc parallel twin engine. It's liquid cooled. And it puts out a respectable 67 horsepower at 8,000 RPM.
Okay, and torque. That's important too.
Right. Yeah. You get 64 Newton meters of torque, and that peaks at 6,700 RPM.
So that tells us what about the kind of power delivery we can expect?
Well, it suggests you'll have good, solid power available in that low to mid-range, which is where you're going to be spending most of your time, especially if you're commuting or just doing, everyday kind of riding. You won't have to rev it super high to get going.
Right, right. Makes it easier to handle, I'd imagine.
Exactly. More user-friendly.
Okay, and what about the transmission? What are we working with here?
So it's a six-speed with an assist and slipper clutch, which is a really nice touch.
Oh, yeah, I was going to ask about that. What does that actually do for you as a rider?
Well, the assist part of it means the clutch lever is going to be easier to pull. That's great for anyone, but especially if you're dealing with a lot of stop-and-go traffic, your hand won't get as tired. And then the slipper clutch, that helps to prevent the rear wheel from locking up if you downshift too quickly.
Ah, that's a good safety feature, especially for newer riders.
Definitely. It just makes everything a bit smoother and less jarring, especially when you're still getting used to things.
Now, what about the frame? It's a high tensile steel trellis frame, right? What are the benefits of that kind of design?
Yeah, so a trellis frame, it's really good at providing strength and rigidity without adding a lot of weight. It's like building a bridge with a bunch of interconnected pieces as opposed to just a solid beam.
I see. So it helps keep the bike light and nimble.
Exactly. And the article mentions that the Ninja 650 also has a pretty low center of gravity, which is another plus for handling, especially when you're going through corners. Makes it feel more stable.
All right, and suspension, what's going on there?
So up front, you've got a 41 millimeter telescopic fork, which is pretty standard. It does a good job of soaking up bumps and giving you a comfortable ride. And then in the rear, there's a horizontal back-link swing arm.
Okay, is that something special?
It's a bit more sophisticated than a basic swing arm. It helps keep the rear wheel more planted and gives you better control, especially when you're riding a bit more aggressively.
All right, and brakes.
So you've got dual 300 millimeter pedal discs with ADS up front, and then a single 220 millimeter pedal disc with ABS in the rear.
Good to see ABS as standard. That's important for safety.
Absolutely. It just gives you that extra peace of mind, knowing that your wheels are less likely to lock up if you have to brake hard, especially in slippery conditions.
And what about some of the key dimensions? Let's talk about seat height. I know that's something a lot of riders consider, especially if they're, maybe shorter or just starting out.
Yeah, the Ninja 650 has a seat height of 790 millimeter, which is a little over 31 inches.
So that should be pretty manageable for most people.
Definitely. Most riders should be able to get at least 1 foot flat on the ground. It makes it a lot easier to handle the bike at low speeds and just gives you more confidence overall.
Right. And weight. How heavy is this thing?
The curb weight is listed at 193 kilograms, which is about 425 pounds.
Okay. So not super heavy for a bike in this category.
No, not at all. It's definitely on the lighter side, which contributes to that nimble feel that we were talking about earlier.
Okay. And fuel tank size.
It holds 15 liters of fuel, which is about 3.9 gallons.
Okay. So decent range there. And
Yeah.
what about top speed and fuel economy, just to get a sense of what it's like on the open road?
Well, the article says the top speed is around 210 kilometers per hour, which is about 130 miles per hour.
Yeah.
And the fuel economy is estimated to be around 25 kilometers per liter or 59 miles per gallon.
So pretty good on gas. And top speed, I mean, it's not a super bike, but it's still plenty fast enough for most riders.
Yeah, I'd say so. You're not going to be setting any land speed records, but you'll definitely be able to have some fun out there.
Now, let's talk about the tech a little bit. The Ninja 650 comes with a 4.3-inch TFT display, right? And smartphone connectivity, too.
That's right. The TFT display is a really nice touch. It's full color, so it's easy to read even in bright sunlight. And it can connect to your smartphone via Kawasaki's Radiology app.
So what can you actually do with that app?
Well, you can view your ride logs, you can get vehicle updates, there's service information. It just gives you a lot of handy features and information right there on your phone.
Right, right. It's almost like having a little digital co-pilot for your bike.
Kinda, yeah. It's pretty cool. And then, of course, the price. That's always a big factor.
Mm-hmm.
In the U.S., the Ninja 650 starts at around $8,299.
Okay, so that's pretty competitive in the middleweight category.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Yeah.
Especially for all the features you're getting. It seems like a pretty good value.
All right, so we've talked about the specs, but let's dive a little deeper into some of the key features that the article highlights. They talk about that engine quite a bit, how smooth and reliable it is and how it delivers power in a very linear way.
Yeah, it's not a super aggressive engine. It's very user-friendly, even for less experienced riders. That broad spread of torque that we were talking about earlier means you don't have to constantly be shifting gears to find the power. Just very easy to ride.
And it seems like that assist and slipper clutch really adds to that user-friendly feel, too.
Definitely. The light clutch pull is great for traffic, and that slipper clutch, it just prevents any nasty surprises if you happen to mess up a downshift. It keeps everything smooth and controlled.
Okay. And the trellis frame. We've talked about how it helps keep the bike light and agile, but the article also mentions how it contributes to that sleek, modern look.
Yeah, it's functional and stylish. It's really a key part of the Ninja 650's overall aesthetic. And then, of course, there's the riding position. Kawasaki really seems to have focused on comfort here.
Yeah, the article talks about the upright riding position, the higher handlebars, the well-padded seat. It sounds like they've really tried to make it a comfortable bike for longer rides.
Right. It's not going to be as aggressive as some sport bikes. You're not going to be hunched over, putting all your weight on your wrists. It's designed to be more relaxed, more comfortable, especially if you're going to be spending a lot of time in the saddle.
And that TFT display, that seems like a really nice feature.
Yeah, it's super clear and easy to read, and you can customize it to show you the information that's most important to you. Plus, that smartphone connectivity with the Radiology app just adds a whole other level of functionality.
And we talked about the LED headlights, how they offer better visibility and have that cool modern look.
Yeah, they definitely make the bike stand out, especially at night.
Yeah.
And then there's the ABS. We've talked about the safety aspect of that, but it's just nice to see it as standard equipment on both the front and rear brakes.
And suspension. The article mentions that it's balanced, designed to be comfortable for everyday riding, but also capable enough to handle some sportier maneuvers.
Right, it's that versatility again. It can handle a variety of riding styles and conditions. It's not a hardcore track bike, but it can still hold its own on a twisty road.
And that fairing, it's not just about looks, is it?
No, it definitely serves a practical purpose, too. It helps to deflect wind at higher speeds, which can reduce fatigue on longer rides. And it also contributes to the bike's aerodynamic efficiency.
And the article wraps up that section by talking about how the Ninja 650 is a great bike for riders of all skill levels. Whether you're just starting out or you've been riding for years, it's a bike that can grow with you.
Absolutely. It's approachable enough for beginners, but it's also got enough performance potential to keep more experienced riders entertained. It's a great all-arounder.
Okay, so the article also does a really good job of comparing the Ninja 650 to some of its competitors. They talk about the Yamaha YZF R7, the Honda CBR 650R, and the Suzuki SV650.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how it stacks up against those other bikes.
So starting with the R7, it sounds like the Yamaha is a bit more aggressive, a bit more focused on
Yeah,
performance.
it's got a more powerful engine and a more track-focused riding position. It's definitely a sportier bike.
But the article suggests that the Ninja 650 is more comfortable for everyday riding.
Right, it's a bit more forgiving, easier on your wrists and back, especially if you're doing a lot of commuting or longer rides.
Okay, and what about the CBR 650R?
So the Honda, that's an inline-4 engine, so it's going to have a different character than the Ninja 650's parallel twin. It's going to be smoother, and it's going to rev higher.
But it's also more expensive.
Yeah, the Honda is definitely a pricier option, and it's a bit heavier too.
Okay, and then the Suzuki SV650.
The SV650, that's a classic. It's been around for a long time. It's known for its torquey V-twin engine.
But it's maybe not quite as modern as the Ninja 650?
Right, it's got a more basic instrument cluster,
Yeah.
and it doesn't have all the tech features that the Kawasaki does.
So it sounds like the Ninja 650 really sits in a sweet spot. It's sportier than a naked bike, but it's more comfortable and practical than a full-on super sport.
Exactly. It's that balance that makes it so appealing. It can do a lot of things well.
Now let's talk about some of the design and comfort details. The article really praises that aggressive front end with the dual LED headlights and the sharp fairing.
Yeah, it's a very distinctive look, and those headlights, they really make a statement. Plus, they provide great visibility, which is always important.
And the rear of the bike.
It's got a nice sleek tail section. And the article mentions those small vents that help to reduce turbulence at speed. It's all very well thought out.
And that exhaust system.
It's low-mounted and centrally located, which helps with the bike's balance. And it's got a nice sporty sound, but it's not too loud.
So good for both the rider and the neighbors.
Exactly. And speaking of the rider, let's talk about that riding position again. It sounds like Kawasaki's really nailed it with this bike.
Yeah, the article talks about the slightly forward lean, but still very comfortable. The handlebars are positioned in a way that reduces strain on your wrists and shoulders. And the seat height is accessible for a wide range of riders.
Right. This has a very ergonomic design.
Mm.
And the seat itself is well padded and supportive. So even longer rides shouldn't be a problem.
Now, what about passenger comfort? Is there anything to speak of there?
Well, the article mentions that the pillion seat is a bit small, but it's still usable for shorter rides. And there are grab handles for the passenger to hold on to.
Okay, so maybe not ideal for long-distance touring with a passenger, but for shorter trips, it's fine.
Right. And you can always add an optional backrest if you need more support for your passenger.
And that TFT display, we've talked about it a few times, but it sounds like it's really well integrated into the cockpit.
Yeah, it's easy to read at a glance, and it's got all the information you need. Plus, that smartphone connectivity just adds another layer of convenience.
Okay, so let's just recap some of the key advantages that the article highlights about the Ninja 650. You know, that balance of performance and comfort, that smooth, predictable power delivery, the high-tech features.
Yeah, and that aggressive styling, the lightweight handling, the reliability, and the fact that it's a very approachable bike for riders of all levels.
Those are all really strong points, but of course, no bike is perfect. What are some of the potential drawbacks that the article mentions?
Well, it's not really a track-focused bike, so if you're looking for something to take to the racetrack, you might want to consider something else. It's also a bit limited in terms of electronic rider aids. It doesn't have things like traction control or riding modes.
Okay, so maybe not as cutting edge in terms of electronics as some other bikes. And what about vibration? I know some twin-cylinder engines can be a bit buzzy at higher RPMs.
The article does mention that some riders might experience some vibration, especially on long highway rides. It's something to be aware of.
And passenger comfort, we talked about that a little bit, but it sounds like it's not the most comfortable bike for two-up riding.
Right. It's fine for shorter trips. But if you're planning on doing a lot of long-distance touring with a passenger, there might be better options out there.
And the exhaust note, it sounds like it's fairly mellow.
Yeah, it's not a super aggressive sound. So if you're looking for a bike with a really loud exhaust, you might want to look elsewhere or, consider an aftermarket exhaust system.
And no quick shifter.
No, not on this bike. So it's all manual clutch for gear changes.
Okay, so those are some things to consider. But overall, it sounds like the Ninja 650 is a really well-rounded package. And the article does a good job of answering some common questions in that FAQ section.
Yeah, it's a really helpful resource for anyone who's considering buying one of these bikes. It covers things like top speed, fuel range, Bluetooth connectivity, and even available colors.
So after reading through this article, it's clear that the 2024 Kawasaki Ninja 650 is a really compelling option in the middleweight sport bike category. It's got a lot to offer, especially for riders who are looking for that balance of performance and practicality.
Absolutely. It's a fun bike to ride, it's comfortable, it's stylish, and it's packed with technology. It's a great choice for a lot of people.
Now, here's something to think about. The Ninja 650 really emphasizes that connection between the rider and the machine, that feeling of being in control, of feeling the road, of experiencing the ride. So my question for you is this. What other forms of transportation, maybe even beyond motorcycles, offer that same kind of visceral experience? And how does that feeling, that connection, shape our understanding of the world around us? I think it's something worth considering.
That's a really interesting question. It makes you think about how we interact with our environment and how the tools we use to move through the world can actually shape our perception of it.
Exactly. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, ride safe.
See you next time.